Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning from Cambridge in the UK. And hello to you in, I presume, Skopje or in the outskirts of Skopje, around there. So very good to see you. Welcome to 3 hours of fun, hopefully. Hopefully be interesting anyway. My name's Jem Thomas. I'm the Director of Training and Research at Albany Associates. My speciality is in media and communications campaigns, but because I'm also a trainer, I do the train courses, and I do have a little bit of a background in counter disinformation, or certainly in disinformation. Some people would rather put me in that bracket. Anyway, I know that you've already done a day's workshop looking at disinformation in the round. And this session is a 3-hour session just to get you up to speed on some training techniques. I know some of you have put the survey back to me, and thank you very much for that. And I do know that some of you have done a degree of training before. So some of this will be hopefully familiar, but hopefully it'll be able to take you to a different level. The way I'll run the course is that it will be interactive. So please feel free to interject and provide some of your feedback and your experience in teaching and instructing. So without further ado, we have enough people to carry on. So we will carry on. Just for those who are not comfortable in English, there is the option for Macedonian. On the interpretation bar at the bottom of your screen, you'll see interpretation. You can click on there. You will have to click on Portuguese. Okay, but don't worry, it won't, the translation is not in Portuguese, it is in Macedonian. Don't worry. Okay, so without further ado, let us press ahead. Let's press ahead. Training course 9562. This is part of our wider counter disinformation course. Normally we'd give at least 2 sessions in this, but we've condensed it down for your purposes. So I know you're extremely busy. Just a quick technology check. Names. I see you've all got your names on the screen, so that's absolutely fine. I know who's who. Preferably camera on, but especially when you're speaking. If you do want to make a comment, please can you put your camera on when you're speaking so we can actually see you talking. Mute when not talking. If the signal is breaking up, obviously camera off to reduce the bandwidth. Please post questions in chat, either in English or in Macedonian. Doesn't matter. We will stop periodically. If you have written in Macedonian, we'll stop periodically, and I will speak to Gordon, our translator, and ask him what's in there. Raise hands digitally if required, or if you're on camera, just make a lot of noise. You know, that's fine. So if required, do that. We've just got someone else joining the meeting, Nada. There will be breakout rooms. We will be using breakout rooms. They will be assigned at random. Okay, so I've not pre-selected you. So it will be a random selection when we use breakout rooms. This session will be recorded. It is being recorded now in video in English at the moment. And that will be available on the learning management system later on. So if any of you want to go back and review the video, you've missed something, that's fine. And if anybody hasn't attended, they can still go back and check it out. The learning management system, oh, got someone else joining. Oh, they're all coming out. Everyone's coming out. Excellent. We're having a big party. The learning management system, I assume you're all now fairly familiar with it. I'll just bring it back up on the system here. I apologize for some of the translation. It was Mr. Google who did some of that translation, so it might not be brilliant, but hopefully you're all familiar with this now. I have now opened up this session, so there is more material available for you there. This is my view, so some stuff you won't have available to you, but there is more material on the learning management system now, things like gender sensitivity in training, some classroom lesson plans, post-training survey, and just for you to be aware, I can see when you're on the system, when you're active on the system. So I can actually monitor your progress. This was a longer course. If you were trainers and you were doing a longer course in LMS, you could track your students much more effectively. So I can see that Tamara, you went onto the system 6 minutes and 3 seconds ago. There you go. I can be big brother and watch you. So I hope you're familiar with the LMS. And as I say, there's a course online which I will put you on at the end of this, which you can understand how to use an LMS if you wanted to for your online training. Okay. So as a good trainer, one of the first things you should do is also brief your students on what we're going to be doing today and why we're doing it. Objectives. Hopefully you've read some of the material, the ToT manual. Objectives, very, very important, and always framed in a way that is about what you want the delegates to do at the end of the course. So I've set out 6 objectives for this session, and this session is actually broken up into 2 sections. We will have a coffee break in the middle. And there you see on the screen what I hope you will be able to do at the end of this, okay? So carry out better pre-training assessment and better understand your student cohorts, design training modules and prepare formal lesson plans. Some of you may already do that. Incorporate gender sensitivity into training. That will be the first half. Then we'll have a break for coffee. So I know certainly in your area of the world, coffee is very, very important. And then for the second section, we'll start looking at training mechanisms, both in a classroom environment and an online environment, and then look at finally at evaluating your training. It's pointless doing a training if you don't know whether you're actually achieving what you set out to do. So that's what we hopefully are going to achieve in the next 3 hours. It's a condensed course, very condensed, but hopefully we'll cover all those, okay? Expectation check. I just want to, I know some of you answered the surveys, but I'm just going to go around now to get you to do some talking. What do you want? I'm asking 2 questions. What do you want from this training? And in the future, what sort of training do you intend to conduct yourself? I probably know the answer to the second question, but I'm going to open it up to you to speak to me, to tell me what do you want from this training as individuals. So let's start with NASA. I've got NASA on my screen. NASA, what do you want from this training?
Hello, guys. Because I'm first to introduce myself. Nasser Salmanin, journalist and visitor professor in ToT956 University. First, you know, the topic of fake news and media freedom and different role of media in democratic societies. It's in one part is to have a knowledge about these topics, but for me, I'm looking forward to learn new techniques, interactive techniques with students, how this knowledge easily to transfer to them. Because, you know, because every one of us know to make presentation for different topics, but the idea is because in some cases, students are not willing to participate in the in the training or presentation, or the problem is how to motivate them, how to activate them to participate in the session.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, and we're doing that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're a couple of minutes in, and as the teacher, I said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I want you to interact. So I'm demanding your time already. Thank you very much, NASA. Interactive techniques. Okay, someone else. Who wants to speak next? Feel free. Tamara.
I'm not surprised that you pick me because I'm first on the list. Well, similar as Nasser said, I'm not a professor, I'm a journalist, so I don't have much opportunity to train people. But there is a different situation now, and I would like from this training to take some tricks, tips of the trade, you know, how to successfully train people online, how to be interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'm interested how to present the main meaning
Mm-hmm.
of journalism and professional and the profession with people that are not journalists, because for me it's very easy to speak with journalists because we have some rules, standards, you know. When you say ethic principles, everybody knows what we are talking about. But when you talk with the, let's say, people that are not skilled or not educated for journalists, they don't understand you, or they don't
Mm-hmm.
you need to explain them, you know, the principles of the trade. So I expect from this training to give me some insight how to present this the rule
Mm-hmm.
of journalism to people that are not journalists or
Excellent.
young
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
not educated and
Excellent. So yeah, training people who are not necessarily trained in the same field as yourself.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Great. Absolutely. Okay. Thank you, Tamara. Who wants to go next? Who wants to interact
Okay.
with me? Please, Vasco. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I expect to learn how to animate the students, especially the children, to be active and interactive in the online courses, especially because I think that in journalism there are a lot of topics which are not very interesting for the children, let's say. And
Mm-hmm.
I have maybe a problem discussing about freedom of speech. You know, you should be very, how can I say, interesting to get the attention of the children and the students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with young children, you do have to work a little bit harder
Yes,
in a
yes,
way.
yes.
Pedagogy, which is young children, is to there are overlaps, but it's very different from andragogy, which is the training of adults. So there are subtle
Psychology,
differences.
maybe, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to we are different psychological beings compared,
Yes.
when we're little and when we're older. Thank you, Vasco. Anybody else want to contribute to the discussion? Feel free. Come on. You're amongst
Okay.
friends. Katerina.
Yes. Hi to everyone. Less or more, I can see that all of us are expecting the same thing from this course. All of us had the opportunity already to speak with and to have that lesson with the students with the in a high school I had. So nowadays, when they are all the day in front of the computer and they have lessons with the professors, it's very tough and to make an interesting lesson for 30 minutes that will be something different for them. The first thing that I'm expecting from you is how to animate to open the camera. How to animate them. Yes, I had that problem. We started the lesson and they were like, here, everybody. And I said, hi to everyone. I'm a TV journalist, so I'm used to speak to no one, but in this lesson, I really appreciate if you open the camera to see you and to have and you're waiting for 30 seconds, 1 minute, and no one is opening the camera. And you say, okay, we are continuing on this way. So please, let's start from the very beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I said at the start in the technology check, camera on if possible. But yes, you do have to a degree encourage people to do it. And there is a big discussion in teaching fields of online as to how far you can push that, actually, because there is the option to not have the camera on, and people sometimes are very shy. And how much should you be pushing people to do it? Because you can get to a point where if you force them to put the camera on, then all of a sudden they're not as relaxed and therefore learning is impaired for that individual because they feel as if they're on show. So yeah, I'm the same as you. I like to see people on camera, but I appreciate that some people don't want to be on camera, and some people will learn better if they're on camera. So it's not necessarily a reflection of the teacher if everyone isn't on camera. So, but I'm very pleased that you all, most of you are on camera, and sometimes people have genuine reason why they can't be on camera. Sometimes they're on a mobile phone, haven't got much signal, whatever. So that's fine. But yeah, we'll talk about how we encourage people to interact, because that's what it's about, interaction. As NASA said, this is about an interaction. Excellent. Okay, anybody else want to contribute before we move on? Okay, I think we've probably covered the main aspects which are concerning to all of you, and in fact that came out in the pre-training survey. Very. Okay. I seem to be back. I have really no idea what happened there, but we have systems back. So let's just press ahead. I'm terribly sorry. I apologize on behalf of my country and my village and my town that we can't get the internet right. This has never happened before. Right. Okay.
And you can use your hotspot from your smartphone to make an internet connection.
That's where I was going to go next. That's where I was going to go next.
Stable.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's press on. I need to share screen. Desktop 2. Share. Okay. So let's press on. Right. Okay, we've done the expectation check, done pre-training survey. Okay, let's get there. Right. Just sort my screen out, and we shall whiz through some of this quickly. Right. Okay. So, as I mentioned in the objectives, one of the things we need to do in terms of to generate this interactive conditions that we have for training. Let me just see that. Is we do have to do a degree of planning. Okay, that is a vital part of anything. And I know that we all think we know our material, we know our subjects, and we think we can just go ahead and carry on with training and off we go. But actually, that's just talking and interacting. That's not actually doing training, teaching, learning. So we do have to do a degree of planning. Okay, so the way we approach any teaching evolution is using a system which we use here, which is based upon actually communications. And it's called the OASIS model. And that is a mnemonic, which stands for objectives, audience, strategy, implementation, and scoring. It's the same as what you do if you're doing a campaign plan. You can almost consider that a lesson is like a mini campaign, and where the objective is a learning to go on and delegates to actually be able to do something they couldn't do prior to the lesson. So it is applicable from campaign to training. In terms of objectives, I've already mentioned these when I talked about the lesson, the brief for the actual lesson. It's learning objectives. These are the crucial bits. Training is merely a way of achieving an objective. And this is very important, the way you think about it as a trainer. It is definitely presented in terms of the way you think about it and in terms of lesson planning as well. Yeah, always be written with regard to what the students, the delegates should be able to do after the training, not what you as a trainer wish to impart. Yeah. Oh, what I want to do is I want to tell the students about this. Well, that's fine. You can tell the students all you want. What do you want the students to do with that? That's the important thing. Yeah, that's the vital thing. And really, it can be around enabling the students to be able to do something which they couldn't do before, understanding, recreating something, operating something, justifying it, reflecting, passing a test. But it is something the students have to be able to do, okay? And what I would say in any intervention that you're doing, no more than 5 key objectives really should be specified. If you have any more than that, you're asking too much, not only of yourself as a trainer, but of the audience themselves, the delegates, the students. You're asking them to work with too much. You're expecting too much of them, okay? So what we did as part of the training here is I actually asked you a question in assignment 1A. Now, in assignment 1A, I only got one response back. Yeah, but that assignment was, and I'm not going to click on the assignment now because we haven't really got time, but these are the sort of things which are coming back from you and from others. Yeah, in terms of what objectives would you set yourself in a training session? Yeah. There are 2 examples I've put up here. Yeah. But here you'll notice that these are all set up in terms of what the student is meant to be able to do. Yeah. At the end of this training, the student is to be able to use whoisdomaintools.com. That's straightforward. It's not about you telling them or instructing them, it's what they need to do. They need to be able to check credibility of a website. That's what they need to do. If you go across, critically evaluate news sources in order to determine credibility. It's all about the student. And this sounds pretty simple and basic and obvious. But actually, I think a lot of teaching fails when the teacher forgets it's about the student, not about themselves. It's not about what you want to impart, it's about what you want them to be able to do. So it's a mindset you do need to get into in terms of training all the time. It is about the student, what you want them to do, which they couldn't do before this training session. Okay. So objectives, very important. You set them in those terms. Yeah. And we'll come back to them when we look at actual lesson planning in a minute. What about the audience themselves? Okay. Well, with any audience, you may be doing a training needs analysis. We've already done, to a degree, a training needs analysis or pre-training survey. It is best face-to-face. However, of course, that's often just not practical. So you will be doing some sort of survey, which will be self-reporting. But it is very important you do that engagement before the formal training, learning intervention. Okay, we'll look at the audience section a little bit more later when we establish, okay, you do a survey, what does that mean in terms of your students? Okay, strategy, the strategy element of the Oasis mnemonic is defining what you are going to cover in order to achieve the objectives, always going back to the objectives. Yeah. These should be broken down into, I would say, even though you may have 5 objectives, 3 main elements or vital points. 3. Someone mentioned psychology before, and this is psychological. 3s. Human beings are quite good at working with 3s, in bits of information in 3s. As journalists, you probably know this already. Yeah. If you give them 1 piece of information is absolutely fine, but actually we want to be more ambitious than that. 2 bits of information, yeah, that's fine. But sometimes that can become a bit binary. Yeah. Did I learn this or did I learn that? But 3 is the optimum. 4, too much. 5, too much. 7, forget it. Yeah. So 3 chunks, 3 main areas or vital points. Yeah. So if you're doing a 45-minute presentation, or let's call them a learning evolution, you should be really chunking around 3 main points. That's why when I brought out the objectives of this session, they were broken up into 3. There'll be three items that we're going to cover before we have a break for coffee, and then 3 items after. So 3 is actually quite useful, yeah? And each area or vital point should be detailed through one of 2 mechanisms. This is what I've learned through experience, one of 2 mechanisms. Either key learning points, yeah, these are the specific points within those 3 main elements, or the one I prefer, as you'll see when I show you some of my lesson plans, questions to address. To get to questions to address, this is putting yourself in the minds of the students and thinking, okay, if I want the student to be able to do this at the end of this lesson, say, what questions as a student would I be asking to make sure that I could do that thing? Yeah, use whoisdomains tool, or use TinEye as a reverse image search. what questions would I be asking as a student in order for me to be able to do that? So questions to address, I prefer them, all key learning points. And we'll see how they fit into the lesson planning schema shortly. But this is all defining a strategy, yeah? And in terms of KLPs or Q2As, they're the mnemonics for them, I'd say no more than 10 per lesson, yeah? So probably 3 or 4 per vital point, yeah? You can go a little bit, you know, I mean, I think if you've got 50 key questions, Q2As, or 50 KLPs, then you're thinking, actually, this is not a lesson or a session. This is probably a day's set of lectures, or maybe 2 days set of lectures. There's so many questions that need to be dealt with for the student. This is not just a singular learning intervention. Okay, so 10. I go a little bit higher. I tend to be about 12, 15 for an intervention, but that's where we should go in. But it's about what questions, if it's Q2As, what questions do I need to address for the student in order for them to do what I want, for them to be able to do what I want them to do at the end of this Q2As. We'll become clearer when we look at lesson plannings. So you've defined what your objectives are, you understand your audience, we'll look at that in more detail in a minute, and you've decided how you're going to do this, yeah? What you're going to cover. KLPs, Q2As. Now implementation. So the planning is, okay, I've decided, you know, what questions I need to address. How am I now going to actually do that in a learning intervention? Okay, it defines how you're going to cover your KLPs or Q2As. Okay. At this point, you will be considering training mechanisms, which we will look at in the second half of this. Yeah, what mechanisms can I actually use to cover those Q2As or QLPs? What materials do I need? Do I need any specialist materials? Yeah. And what time do I need? Very important. How long will I need to address any of these KLPs and Q2As to achieve those objectives? Okay. This will become all clear very shortly when we look at lesson plans themselves and how it actually is put into format. Scoring at the end. How are we going to measure? We're still in the planning phase. How are we going to measure this? We will cover this in the second session after coffee. Okay, we'll look at that in more detail, how we actually do the scoring. Yeah, but you need to plan this out before you go and get in front of a bunch of students, be they online or traditional. Okay, so how do we put that into practice, that OASIS schema, so we can plan something to do an intervention and not just do it ad hoc, as sometimes people do? Well, we suggest something like this, which is a lesson planning template. Yeah, which if you go across the top line, covers objectives, audience, strategy, implementation, and scoring. And then in the subdivisions, the audience, we'll look at the audience very shortly. What are the KLPs? What training mechanisms? What materials and what time? So let's have a look at a real one. Yeah. That is a lesson plan for a session on journalism safety, cyber and online. Yeah, that was I think it was how long? A 30-minute lesson that was conducted. Yeah, if you can see, there are 3 objectives that were set up there, and they're defined in terms of, this is for journalists. So at the end of this lesson, journalists are aware. So that's what I want journalists to be. I want them to be aware of this. They're aware of digital safety concerns, simple protection measures, and appropriate security software. So I'm right now, I know what I want them to be able to do or be aware of at the end of the lesson, which they might not have been aware of before. That's my objective. Yeah. We'll look at audience again in a minute, so let's get a little bit more detail. In terms of strategy, okay, KLPs or Q2s, what questions do I need to address in the minds of the audience, in this case, a bunch of journalists? What questions do I need to address in order to achieve those objectives? And there you go. I've just put some of these things down here. These are and these are questions, Q2As. Yeah. What are the specific dangers within the digital space for journalists? And do journalists take digital threats seriously? I need those two questions to be answered for the sake of the class, of the students. Simple practices to secure communication, simple practices data storage, simple practices to secure the devices. Yeah. So these are the questions that need to be addressed. So this is all part of my planning. I haven't actually started the lesson yet. And then the implementation. Okay. So what am I going to do? You can see that on the implementation section, I've got training mechanisms: ask, discussion, ask, discussion, ask, presentation, roundup. So in this session here, what was mainly used was a mixture of presentation, ask, yeah. So actually it was very interactive. When this was delivered, very interactive. It says compare and add slide points on flip chart. Yeah. Ask, discussion. So what was done, you did have a presentation, but there was a lot of interaction using a flip chart where the lecturer asked the audience, in this case it was journalists, yeah, to respond to some of these questions. So actually facilitating knowledge, because with andragogy, with adults, often you have a lot of knowledge in the room. So your job as a trainer is to facilitate that knowledge. Ask the audience, yeah, ask the audience, and then get them to discuss it and agree what the answers are to some of these questions to address. Yeah. So that was the mechanism. We'll come back to more mechanisms later on. And the materials, yeah, okay. What materials do you need? A certain number of slides. Yeah. I need there's obviously a presentation. I need slides on journalist survey on tools for security. Slides, yeah. A set of slides on secure communications, data storage, device security. Yeah. And once again, in terms of security software, slides to be prepared for that as well. And a resources link at the bottom. Yeah. A lot of resources actually were taken from this internet link to supply that. I've got timing as well as how long it will take each section, and scoring actually pretty simple questions to answer, to ask the students at the end of this. It's a little bit more complex. When we look more into online planning, you'll see that survey, and look at survey specifically, there's a little bit more detail that's required there. But that is that's probably the most simple lesson plan that you can have. Now, some people look at that and go, well, yeah, I just do that anyway. You know, if someone said, you know, go and do a lecture for half an hour on journalism, safety, and cyber and online, a lot of you as journalists, especially if you work in the digital space, could probably go, yeah, I'll do that. I'll go do that. Well, that's fine. But actually, are you just talking to your audience? So I'm sure all of you could probably talk about your subjects very, very easily. In doing this, you're starting to actually specifically aim at the learning element and not just the talking coming from a lecturer. That's the difference. And people say, okay, yeah, I have this plan, but am I going to stick to it? Do I sit in the lecture and go, oh, the plan, right, at 6 minutes I'm going to do this, and oh, 14 minutes I'm going to do this? No, actually, that's not the way it works. Because the importance of lesson planning isn't so much the lesson plan, it is the plan. It's the planning itself. And I refer back to this chap, Dwight D. Eisenhower, yeah, who said these words. And I think it's very, very true for lesson plans. Yeah, plans are nothing, but the process of planning is everything. So although you as teachers might do that, and then you might never, ever really stick to it, the fact that you've gone through the process of looking at what the specific objectives are, understanding the audience, running a strategy and deciding what your KLPs or Q2As are, then knowing how to implement them and what materials and time it will take and how to score it, by going through that process, you'll be much more effective in achieving, ultimately, the learning outcomes. So it's the planning process which is more important than the actual plan itself. But I think it's absolutely vital. Absolutely vital. Yeah. And of course, when things go wrong, as they have this morning, what one must do is keep calm and pretend it's on the lesson plan. So that internet outage this morning, that was actually planned. I knew exactly what I was doing, and it went down, and it's absolutely fine, and it was all part of the plan. No, it wasn't. That was a genuine problem. But the more planning you've done, the more adaptable you can be to when things happen. Maybe discussions start developing around a certain area in your lecture, and you think, actually, I want to pursue this because it's useful. Then at least if you've had a plan, you know where the slack is. You go, okay, I'll spend a bit more time discussing this issue because it's actually really valuable, and I'll spend a little bit less time talking about this other issue later on, because you've gone through the planning process. It's not just you turning up and talking to an audience. Okay, that is the subtle difference. And I seem to have lost something there. This isn't part of the lesson plan, by the way. I just for some reason lost my share screen, lost my lecture. Just give me a second while I bring it back up. Okay. That's just coming back up. This isn't part of the lesson plan. This is just a problem with PowerPoint. It's just gone down. Then I'll bring it back up now. At this point, are there any questions? Are you all perfectly happy with what you've been hearing so far? Has anybody done extensive lesson planning before?
As I've mentioned in my pre-survey for this course,
Mm-hmm.
I have an extensive experience when it comes to giving lectures, courses, trainings, and stuff for more than a decade. But I've never sat down and made a planning for those courses and trainings because it's always going with the flow. So far, it has been, let's say, successful in many ways. That is why I've mentioned that I would really like to learn these strategies, these methodologies, and stuffs on how to plan your trainings and courses, because the main problem that I had were the time frames.
Yes.
So sticking to the time that was given within the agenda.
Yes, absolutely. And like you, yeah, I can fly by the seat of my pants a bit. I'm quite happy going in front of students and going, okay, generally what have I got to talk about? And off you go, and it's all great, and everybody goes, wow, that's amazing, that's really interesting, Jem. Yeah, fantastic. So I can do that. But actually, when I formally had to say, actually, now I'm a trainer, I had to start thinking more strategically. And it does help. It's a lot of the time I do lesson planning, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, but I know how to do this. I can go and do it. It'll be fine. But having the self-discipline to go, no, I am going to plan this. It does improve your performance as a teacher, I think. Absolutely. So yeah, I think, yeah, even no matter how good and gregarious and good you are at doing teaching, by doing lesson planning, it just becomes more effective. And yeah, it helps you manage that time, especially. It does. So for all of you, whether you're experienced or not, a degree of planning is really important. It does help a lot. Yeah. And it can be quite simple. It can be quite simple. Yeah. Of course, that was mainly for a classroom. That Cyber and Online was for a classroom environment, which basically said presentation, flip chart, lots of discussion and asking questions, writing on a flip chart, getting agreement amongst the audience, and then moving on, and then referring to resource at the end. That was classroom environment. Online learning, very similar. We'll do a little bit more online learning the second session, but yeah, it's pretty much the same. I won't dwell too much on that because we're going to come back to it, but lesson planning for online, just as important. And in fact, in a way for online, it can become even more important, especially if you're doing online on a learning management system where you will have activities outside of the formal lesson plan, formal lesson itself, as we have had here. Yeah, we've had an assignment beforehand. And if you're doing multiple lessons, you will have homework in between. Yeah. How many of you have done courses where homework is involved?
I've been doing that for the past months, and I have to tell you that it's quite difficult doing these online courses and being part of them, or 4 weeks modules or.
Yeah. I'm learning the hard way, not the hard way, that doing online, well, you can just do your online lesson like we're doing now and leave it like that, and that's one thing. But as you say, if you're doing multiple lessons and you're doing assignments and homework in between, it is extremely demanding. People that think that online teaching is really easy, it's so much easier than standing in front of a classroom. It's not. In many ways, it is much more demanding. It's much more demanding, but it can be very rewarding as well. Yeah. So are there any further questions before we head on and look at the audience specifically?
Excuse me.
Please.
When you mentioned about giving them homework to do, students, I don't know. I wanted to ask you if also British students are not motivated to. I have impression that our students don't care about.
Yeah. This is a big, once again, this is a big difference between your proper academic teaching, because let's face it, in colleges and universities, people who are going there to do this, either in the classroom or online, they have a vested interest in doing the work because they may have paid for a course. They think, actually, I need to do this course so I can get a qualification, so I can get a job. So they're more motivated. Often in classes, like you may be doing, classes for say junior journalists, young journalists who are coming through. Some of them might not have that same motivation. So how do you motivate them? Well, one way is you give them incentives. You incentivize them. Yeah. I haven't told you this yet, but well, in fact, in this course, I won't be doing that because it's not a full course. But in a lot of the courses I do, I say until you submit a proper post-training survey, you will not receive a certificate of attendance and have professional development points. Now that's a little bit harsh, but it does concentrate the mind of certain students that think, actually it's quite important I do get something from this course, which I can put on my CV or whatever. And unless I'm seen to engage and also do a post-training survey which makes sense, then I'm not gonna get anything out of it. So it does incentivize. But also motivation is about the interaction. The more you can draw people in and ask them, engage them, and say you've got no choice but to actually engage in this. And we'll look at the training mechanisms later. That's another way of motivating people, not because they want to be involved, but because they have psychologically, they have no choice. Ognan, you raised your hand.
Yeah, what Nasser said, I second that opinion, and the part of the motivation, but probably my biggest challenge when it comes to especially because I work for a half year with the journalistic club and with young journalists. The biggest problem that I have, and probably a challenge for me as well, is bridging the generation gap. So it is much easier for me when it comes to generations that are apart from the millennials or from the generation Z, because the Generation Z has a very different approach and very different standing and opinion on how to do things and how to motivate them, which is not the case with any other generation that we have here or that was born prior to 2000. So this is probably the biggest challenge for me, with bridging the gap of their interest with what should be their interest in the future if they're motivated to become journalists.
Yeah. You raise a good point. We're gonna look at audience in a minute, but I would say, just to respond to your question, I mean, if you were, say you were going to work for a journalism institute and you said, you know, this set of lectures I'm going to do because I want to achieve this objective, it is quite important to know your audience, because you may have a very wide set of demographics, very wide, different people, different skills, different skill levels, different languages possibly, or you know, different levels of language. And at that point, as part of your survey, you might be thinking, actually, do I need to break down my students? And I need to speak to the Journalist Institute and say, look, I'm not going to take them all as one. I'd rather actually, you know, deal with the ones with lower skill sets, yeah, or the ones who have very good language skills, or the older ones versus the, and it sounds a little bit discriminatory, but often it works best for the students. Is you get similar students of similar learning styles, often based upon demographics, and you deal with them in different ways. Yeah, because trying to do often a very wide spread of demographics and skills and languages, it gets so diluted. Yeah, which is what we're coming on to next. We're coming on to trying to understand that audience and maybe catering for them in several different ways. Probably the best way, was mentioned, is face-to-face, but often that's not possible. So you're going to do some degree of survey. Yeah. I did put a survey out to you, pre-training survey, and ask certain questions of you. Yeah. But these are the sort of questions you should be asking of your audience, you know, directly related to the objectives. Yeah. So they will have, based upon objectives you've already got in mind, and then you may subtly change your objectives depending on what response you get from the survey. So, you know, to what level do you understand something? How confident are you doing something? Yeah. Experience in the subject matter itself. Yeah. Using binary or banded questions. Yeah. Have you been through this kind of training before? Have you been working long in this? So once you start getting that sort of information back, you can start to understand your student cohort, be it a cohort of 10, or be it a cohort of 50 or 100 even. Yeah, you can start understanding exactly where those skills, experience, confidence are starting to come in. Yeah. Also, personal learning objectives. I specifically asked that. And what's happened to me before now is I've put out a survey for a big course, and I've found that you may have very differing personal learning objectives based upon the students. And you may come back and go, actually, I was going to do one course, but actually, I think I need to break it down to two. Yeah, because I have a bunch of people here who have certain learning objectives, personal learning objectives, and another bunch who've got totally different learning objectives. And I don't think it's suitable to do all at once. So that goes back to the question of, you know, an older generation, younger generation, different skill sets, different experience. You start getting a sense of where you might have to start breaking down your training. Yeah, specific interests they've got, specific topics they want to do. Because if you get all these vastly different responses, then you do have a problem if you're going to deal with this vast array of issues which students are already raising. And I'd say that's the point. You need to start thinking, okay, do I need to break this down into smaller cohorts to do subtly different courses? You know? The more advanced, and I ask this of you, is to try and get into their minds. Yeah, the psychological profiles, even though this is self-reporting, yeah, of the individual students. The strength scope, Myers-Briggs, some of you might have heard of, transactional analysis. There's something called the PART questionnaire and the BART questionnaire. We'll have a look at one of those in a minute. But I did ask you this. And the reason why I asked you this is you can start breaking your cohort down to understand where the main learning requirements going to fit. Okay. So also be very aware of data protection when you're doing these surveys. Absolutely. So let's have a look at what is often called the PART questionnaire and the PART schematic. You ask your students a certain number of questions. You've been asked these questions, and I'll show you how you resulted from them. You ask certain psychological questions of your students, and then you break them down into the PART model, which is based upon assertiveness and sociability. Assertiveness often, and both these, assertiveness and sociability, will often indicate themselves, especially online. The more people that automatically turn their camera on, the more assertive and sociable they are. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. You in a lesson, you can very quickly establish this in an online lesson. But the PART model breaks student cohorts down into 4 sections. I'll bring them all up here. Pragmatists, activists, reflectives, and theorists, or cooperatives. Yeah. As you can see on the screen, this is how they break down. The pragmatists, they experiment, they see problems as opportunities, yeah, and they need purpose. These are quite driven individuals. Activists, yeah, they get bored easily. They like a challenge. Yeah, they'll give anything a go. Reflectives, they're the ones that sit in the back thinking, yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, they want to go deeper. They want to analyze. Yeah, they're a little bit more cautious. And then the theorists, they're the ones that are very rational, and they need to understand process. Yeah, well, if that happens, then that should happen, and that should happen. Yeah, quite logical thinkers. So the PART model breaks down the psychological profiles of your cohort, and then from that we can establish, okay, so what sort of learning mechanisms or learning styles should I be employing? Yeah, and I'll bring them all up here. Yeah. For pragmatists, yeah, simulations, putting ideas into practice, coaching, learning by going wrong. Yeah. Now, oddly enough, pragmatists tend to be the leaders. Yeah. A lot of CEOs of organizations are pragmatists. Yeah. It's just in their nature. Yeah. They like to actually have a go and learn by mistake. Yeah. Their questions often are around what if. What if I did this? What would happen? Yeah. Activists, yeah, different. They once again easily bored. So short activities, role play, competition. Yeah, they're quite engaged in that. Problem solving, blue sky thinking. They've got the big question of how. How is this happening? How do I do that? Whereas if you go across the reflectives, those deep thinkers, activities analyzing data, research, observing, listening, tend to be a little bit quieter. They're thinking a lot. Yeah. They tend to take a little bit more time to ingest things, but then it does go quite deep and they really get something. And then the theorists, the cooperatives, questioning, logical process, systems and models, process, linear stuff, knowledge tests, very different. Okay. So there are these 4 breakdowns that we can come through in the PART model. Yeah. I won't dwell on this because we haven't got much time, but if we brought some of these people up, we could probably put them in specific areas. I mean, let's just take 2. The Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama, where do you think he would come in this schematic here? Anybody? Is he going to be a pragmatist or activist, emotional, reflective, more thinking? theorist, cooperative, relational. What do we think? The Dalai Lama.
Well, they are all leaders, but they're probably a different types of leaders. I just can't see who on the fourth picture is in the second row. The first.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that's Richard.
Scientology is leader on.
This is from Virgin, no?
Yeah, that's it. That's the head of Virgin.
Rob Benson, I think.
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson.
Yes.
Yeah. So about Dalai Lama, I probably would say that he's a theorist, or in a way.
Yeah. I think he's probably down on this bottom half, isn't he? Yeah, the thinker, cooperational theorist, probably on this side. Yeah, absolutely. What about Margaret Thatcher?
Well, an activist.
Yeah, she's activist, but actually probably more a pragmatist.
Pragmatist, yes.
Certainly above the line. Yeah. Yeah. So even with those two, you can kind of get a sense of who they are. Yeah. And how you might be dealing with them just as an individual, but also in the learning process. If you had a bunch of Dalai Lamas, yeah, and a bunch of Margaret Thatchers, you're gonna do teaching in a very different style. Yeah, comparatively, you're gonna think, actually, the way I teach Dalai Lamas is going to be very different from the way I teach Margaret Thatchers. Yeah, and that's the principle of this. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at reality. We did a part assessment of you using Strength Scope. Yeah, that's the system that was the questionnaire that you received was based on. Yeah, because you had 24 self-reported traits that you had to pick 7 from. Now, 5 of you responded to that. Yeah, and it was all based upon this system here. Yeah, that's over in this corner. You've got all these little reporting things: courage, emotional control, enthusiasm, optimism. They indicate an emotional activist sentimentality. Excuse me. Over here, theorist, cooperatives. Yeah, so developing others, empathy, persuasiveness. Yeah. The pragmatists, the Margaret Thatchers over here, decisiveness, efficiency, results focus. Yeah. And then the reflectives, yeah, critical thinking, strategic mindedness, creativity. Yeah. So we asked you these questions, the 24, and you picked 7. Let's have a look at what you came up with and the relevance to someone like me. These are your results. I've just put on the screen. Okay. If I now actually break it down and using the part model, that's where you are. Yeah. In terms of, you're not a very emotional bunch. Yeah. If you look, yeah, you're quite enthusiastic, but actually, by and large, you don't really fit in the emotional section. In terms of theorists, yeah, relations, working together, theorists, thinking, yeah, quite strong on that. Yeah. Pragmatists, yeah, not really scoring highly. But then back into the reflectives and thinking, yeah, we're getting some higher scores again. Yeah. So what does that actually mean? Now, it's only a sample of 5. So, I've got to be careful how much I take from this. Only a sample of 5. But if you had a bigger cohort, it would be a lot more developed, and you probably see where the majority are coming from. Okay. So back to this model. That is kind of where I think you, based upon the 5, you fit. Okay. That you are really heading towards below the line. Yeah. That you are more reflectives and theorists. Yeah. So if I was doing proper full training with you, I'd be thinking a lot about research, observing and listening, analyzing data, and also on the other side, questions, logical process, yeah, systems and models and knowledge tests. The questions that you're more interested in are the what and why. What and why, yeah. Now, of course, we all have traits of all of these. Yeah, it's very, very rarely do you get someone who fits right in a box on their own, right at the far extreme. But interestingly, I've done quite a few of these sessions with journalists, mostly with junior journalists. And this is not empirically sound, but I did observe that actually junior journalists tend to shift more towards into the activist area. Maybe that's because of their age. Yeah, that they're more activist minded, easily bored. Yeah, when they get on their phone and start doing it. Yeah, something like that. That's a possibility. So there's a subtle difference already between you and junior journalists, which I've seen. So with junior journalists, I definitely have to be a lot more thinking about things like short activities, competition. Competition is quite a big thing. Role play, problem solving, blue sky thinking. More than I would with a cohort like you. Yeah. It's not an exact science, but it does force you to go through the process of thinking about your students. Who are they? How do they see themselves? How might they learn better? What activities might be more relevant to them? This is part of the planning process and understanding your audience. And as I say, if you did this kind of examination and you had, say, a load of people up in the pragmatist area and a load of people down in the theorist area, I'd be thinking you need 2 courses. Don't try and put them all together. Yeah. For you, fairly straightforward. You're below the line. You're all sort of in that area. That's absolutely fine. But sometimes you might get complete, you get a bunch of old school journalists and a bunch of junior journalists. You're probably, and you're trying to teach them the same thing. The objectives are the same ultimately. You might be thinking, I need to do 2 different sessions with each, because you've gone the process of learning about your students. Okay. And this is all from survey. Yeah, all from survey. Are there any questions about that simple model? There is another model, which I'm not going to go into for the sake of time, called VARC, which is about visual, auditory, what's the R? I can't remember what the R is. Kinesthetic, visual, auditory. There's another. It's to do with the senses. Yeah, the way we actually accumulate information. Some people are much better working. If I was going to give someone something to learn or to memorize, some people will be much better reading it, and some people will be much better seeing it. Yeah, some people much better to hear it. So sometimes we can do something called a VARC questionnaire to see what is the best way that people actually interact with information which they need to learn and then react upon. Yeah. Visual is obviously quite high, and especially amongst younger journalists, visual. Yeah. Text, as you know, as journalists, text is not dying, but text is vying against, very visual media nowadays. People would much rather watch a 1-minute video than spend 5 minutes reading something. So is that something that one needs to consider in terms of the training you do? That's the VARC model, slightly different. We're not going to go into that into any more detail. What about gender sensitivity? Yeah, okay. We were going to have a discussion about gender bias, but we're not because we're out of time. But do you have biases? Do you have gender biases? Yes or no?
Probably.
Ogden's saying no.
Well, I would like to say no, but I'm not sure. Always we have some kind of bias.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I think, yeah. we'd like to think no, but we all live in the world, which has been structured, to a degree with gender being a driving factor. So we do to a degree, but we can manage it, and we do tend to manage it most of the time. But sometimes we just have to be fully aware and make sure that we are managing our gender biases, some of which might be very, very subtle. Okay. So some of these questions you do need to ask yourself, yeah, when you are planning and you are conducting training. Yeah. Are you aware of your own gender biases, and what are you trying to be more gender responsive in the ways one speaks to people, writes and acts with female versus male, or vice versa. Yeah. And finally, are both given leadership roles. Yeah. I've seen before now people subconsciously grouping people, and all of a sudden you have all the females in one group and all the males in another group, and you go, how did that happen? And they go, I don't know, just did. No, that's probably because of a bias coming in. Oh no, go on. What you got?
Yes, I've said that I don't have gender biases because I do consider the gender as a social construct. So I don't see it as a role giving or role playing part. So it's not that I don't care, but I do not define people by their gender. Yes, I know what you're going for.
Yeah.
I see the point of your presentation. But if I even have to think about being gender biased, then probably female women and girls in my courses and trainings, which are the vast majority of the participants, are more entitled by me for any kind of a leading role than men.
Okay. So is that a bias?
Yes, it is biased by definition.
Yeah.
But the future is female, so
yeah, absolutely. So what you're doing there is you're using a bias to probably counter another bias which might or have slipped in because of the social construct we live in. Yeah, absolutely. For many people, they go, yeah, this is fine. We get it, we do it, but it's just worthwhile as trainers just doing that self-check. As you just said, Onion, you do the self-check, and you sort of you compensate. Yeah, it's just worthwhile everybody doing that. Because actually the way we might look at things, in our teaching and materials, training, all these may, if we don't just take a little bit of time thinking about gender, these little biases can slip in sometimes. Yeah. For example, this has happened to me where I've been writing training manuals and they're very he-based. Yeah. An example, if he should do this, then he will be able to do that. Well, what about she? Oh, yeah. So, yes, that's true. If they, yes, I need to moderate my language in a training manual. Sometimes when I'm talking, I'll say, an example. I'll use a male example. Yeah. So if he was actually reading this and he saw this headline, how do you think he would respond? No, what I mean is how he or she would respond. Yeah. So just thinking, just subtly moderating and thinking gender bias. Yeah. It's a simple thing. Most of us will probably do it automatically, but we need to consider it. Yeah, please, Onin, yeah.
Yes, so there is one thing that is not so much known about the Macedonian language and part of the Slavic languages. I'm not sure if it is the same with the Albanian. Nasser will tell. We have this part in the language which is called feminatives. So we use those in every profession, so we have different word for a female minister and male minister. So we have that differentiation of the roles and of the addressing. So in the past 5 years, it became much more common to use he/she or she/he. But also because I work a lot with marginalized communities, especially with the transgender community on these issues, I believe so that in 5 or 10 years, and giving regard to the Generation Z that is coming, and having in mind that they consider gender as a social construct, we will come to a time, and we are in those times right now, but not all of a sudden everywhere, where nobody will be using he or she, but they will be using they or them.
Yeah.
So because of the non-binary movement. So this is something that we should probably think about, because
Yeah.
these things can become a little bit old-fashioned.
Yes. Yeah. They can be old-fashioned, and you know, language moves, as we know, language moves. And if we don't think about it, and it's just thinking about it and taking steps if one needs to, and by and large, it doesn't, you know, it shouldn't cause a problem. But sometimes with certain audiences, it can really cause a problem. So yeah, it is just about thinking about the he, she, they. You know, yeah, that's what we're talking about in terms of this, and then making sure that, you know, your learning materials, your mechanisms, your exercise discussions, they all reflect a balanced approach to gender. And that's all I want to say on gender insensitivity. There is a short document on the LMS which goes into a little bit more detail, and there's a reference to a very good document on gender sensitivity and training as well in there. So there's more information you can play with there. So at this point, are there any questions? No. Do we want to take a quick 5-minute break for coffee, or are we happy to head on? Let's take a 5-minute break. We've got people nodding.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. Let's. I'm trying to challenge you.
Oh, go on then. Challenge me. Go on then. Challenge me.
Really, I know that our society is masculine oriented, but during my professional work and work with students, I've never seen them as a man or woman, or I really don't see them as a. I had an interesting discussion last week with colleague in the office, and she said, please give me more time or space to speak, because you're guys, you don't respect me as a colleague. And I said, I've never seen people as a woman or man, but I just see as a personality, as a human being which is in front of me. Now, maybe I'm not aware that I'm biased, but I really don't see people in different way because their gender.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'd say sometimes it's not necessarily what we're doing, but it's the perception of what we're doing. And so we sometimes have to, even though we might think we don't have a bias, or we've tempered it, we may need to go a little bit further for a certain set of people to make sure that they're happy with that we are accounting for their gender. So yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I'm pretty much like you. I tend to think, you know, men and women, you know, human beings. They are individuals, each with their individual skills and experience and foibles and whatever, and backgrounds and experience. But I still sometimes think, yeah, did I just say that? Because, you know, I'm old-fashioned to a degree. You know, that's what you say. Sometimes old-fashioned, you have to sort of adjust. By and large, it's not a problem, but I think it is worthwhile, as I say, just considering your biases. Even if you think I haven't got any biases, you're a human being. We all have these biases. We all live in this social construct. You know, live in a highly masculine society. I could say actually the UK still is as well. You know, things, I mean, little tiny things like, you know, referring to an actress on stage. I've done that and said, look, oh, she's a fantastic actress. I'm being called up by someone, you know, a woman saying, actor. You mean actor, don't you? And I go, no, actor. Oh yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, actor. You're right. Yeah, because actors are male and female. Actress is old-fashioned because it used to put female actors in a box and say, oh, they're actresses. So little things like that, they have to just think, no. Actually, they're all actors. Even though my social construct and, you know, and experience would have called them actresses.
There is a very different narrative from what we have here.
Yeah.
So by using actress, you are putting them in a box. That is the narrative of the UK society, but it's a very different narrative for us here. So we tend to use the feminatives for, if we say, for the Macedonian words are actor and acterka. So you just say acterka for a female actress, just to distinguish her as a female one, to be proud of it. So it's a very narrative of the social mentality.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. Yeah, and yeah, gender sensitivity will have a cultural element to it. Absolutely. So it's taking not into account gender sensitivity, but also cultural nuances as well, which have to be taken into account. Absolutely. Yeah. So I've been challenged there by NASA. Excellent. Okay. Do we want to break for coffee, or we're happy to carry on?
I think we can continue.
Yeah, you want to continue? That's absolutely fine by me. We'll get through this because I know we were a little bit behind time. Okay, fine. Training mechanisms. We talked about these magic training mechanisms, which we talked about in terms of, you know, where we put them in the planning. Okay, so what mechanisms do we have? Well, first, let's look at training styles. You will all have a certain training style. I'll bring them all up on the screen here. Yeah, the authority. That, you know, coming into a room, lecturing the audience, walking out. Yeah, that's quite an old-fashioned way of doing it. You go to many universities where they have older professors. That's what they tend to do. Yeah, it can work to a degree. I think nowadays the younger students are expecting more than just that. Yeah, the demonstrator style, the coaching style, much more involving with the audience. The facilitator style, which I think for you, if you're dealing with young journalists, you know, lectures to journalists, I think the facilitator style is very, very important. Yeah, because as I said before, often in these environments, you have people with a lot of skills and knowledge and background, which can contribute to the wider font of knowledge of that entire class. So your job as a teacher is not to say, I've got all the information, I'm going to impart it to you, is to say, I have a degree of information, but I also know that you out there have knowledge, and I am here merely to facilitate mine and your knowledge together. Yeah. So I think that's important. However, for school children, that's more difficult, because school children are there, they're little sponges. They don't have the experience and background to actually maybe put in to the lesson itself. So there you're thinking facilitation method probably isn't the way ahead. Also, the delegated style, really a lot of group work. Yeah, a lot of breaking out into groups and delegating authority to those groups to do learning themselves. Yeah, with guidance. And then, of course, there's the hybrid method, which is actually where we should be operating. Yeah, unless I say with journalists, maybe it is more facilitative. With younger children, you're probably more looking at the demonstrator method, yeah, or the delegator style, group thinking, the group work, yeah. So there's just different styles of approach. But when we look at the specific training mechanisms which one can use, I've broken them up into this list, really. And you'll see when I go back to lesson planning, looking at online, you'll see how I present them in the lesson plan. Practicals and exercise. I think absolutely vital, really, especially if you want to engage your audience, because by demanding that they get themselves involved in a practical and exercise, they can't really avoid being engaged. It is, of course, your job as an instructor to make sure that if they are doing practicals and exercises in groups or as an entire group themselves, that you are watching out for those who aren't engaged, the ones that are willing to just sit back and let everybody else do the work. Yeah. So there is a role for you in this practical exercise, but they are very good training mechanisms. The discussion, likewise, once again, the audience cannot help but be drawn in to a discussion. Yeah. Especially if you use this mechanism, which is my favorite, the ask. Literally the ask. Yeah. Asking a question. Psychologically, human beings cannot avoid questions. If someone poses a question, at some level, we will try and respond to it. We may abandon that endeavor very quickly. I'm not interested. But for nanoseconds, we will try to address a question. We can't avoid it psychologically. So the ask, very, very powerful. We'll look at that in more detail. The lecture and the presentation, what's the difference between them? We'll look at that. The manual and handouts, yeah, giving people something to take away physically, as in either a booklet or something, or maybe something more 21st century, maybe on a mobile app, yeah, something to refer back to. Case studies, I think this is very relevant in disinformation, very relevant, using case studies. Yeah, you've got so many of them, you can really play with them. And demonstration. I think that's also a very, very useful learning mechanism. Yeah. There's that old saying from China, I can't remember what it is, but, you know, tell me one thing, but show me and I will really understand. Yeah, show me. Demonstration, showing me. Very, very powerful learning mechanism or training mechanism. And then finally, mentoring as well, more on the one-to-one level. Yeah. This is predominantly for traditional face-to-face training, which is still the best way of training, I would say, even though online is getting better and better and better. I'm starting to warm to online training a little bit more. But the rules of Oasis and these training mechanisms largely still apply on online. And we'll look at that a little bit in a minute. Just going back to the part model. Yeah. Remember we said we could break people down into the pragmatist, activist, reflective, and theorist. Yeah. My take is it, you know, in terms of the pragmatic, the Margaret Thatchers in the room. Yeah. They like case studies. Yeah. That's good for their style. Yeah. Practical exercise demonstration. A bunch of Margaret Thatchers going to lecture a bunch of Margaret Thatchers. It's not going to go well. Yeah, it's not going to go well. However, for the reflective learner, yeah, which, and you guys are here, lecture, presentation, ask, yeah, there it is, discussion and manual. So there are different training mechanisms which are more predominant for different styles going back to the part model. Yeah, so you can link that in the part model, what sort of training mechanisms might be preferable. Yeah. What about your preferences as a learner? Yeah. If you let's just go as a learner. If let's imagine of those sort of mechanisms, you know, demonstration, practical exercises, the ask, case studies, handout. What do you really as individuals go, actually, that really works for me? That training mechanism is I really like as a learner. That's the best way I would learn.
I practice what I preach.
Yeah, go
Yes.
good. Okay, as a trainer. So and that would be?
So what I want to do as a learner, I do as a trainer, because I believe that genuinely, when you do the things that you understand and want the most, are the most genuine way of passing on that knowledge to others. So it will be, let's say, through discussion, through direct exercises, by not so much dividing the learners into groups, into delegating obligations, but as much of a direct discussion and through challenges that are put into exercises and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the practical, the exercise, the discussion. Yeah. And let's face it, discussion involves a lot of questioning, the ask, isn't it? Yeah.
In a way, questioning in a way, but also through, let's say, online tools like Mentimeter or other tools that I use, so I can just spark a discussion and just leave them to discuss among them. And then just to point out what was said, I tend to give them the opportunity to learn by their personal mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I usually don't give the lectures on the first lessons and courses. I give exercises and some challenges to do them without any kind of knowledge on the topic or the theme. And
Okay,
then
yeah.
I point out the mistakes or the ways that should be done.
Right, okay. So learning by mistakes. Yeah, which is part of the PART model as well. Yeah, learning by mistakes, asking them to do something, they either succeed or fail. Where the failures are, let's address them. Yeah, okay. So Onion, you're well sorted on this. You could.
I will say
go on, Tamara. Yeah.
Case studies, but I'm afraid you will put me in the group with Margaret Thatcher, which I don't like.
Not at all. No, not at all. No, case studies.
I'm kidding. Well, everything that Ognan said, I agree, but I also like games.
Yeah.
Learning through game. I think it's a good way to engage student, but I also like to play a game to get the point of the trainer.
Yeah. Good enough. I don't tend to put games on there because yeah, I've never used games myself because it's it's more exercise. Yeah, but games are very useful, especially if you're teaching younger children. As some of you said, you'd be doing media literacy courses with younger children. Then I think games, the more games as opposed to exercises, are probably very useful. So in my methodology, exercises encompasses games, but for young children, yeah, you're talking genuine games you could be using.
Well, not just young children. For example, the last lecture that we had, the trainer put some kind of tests.
Yeah.
Tests, for us to answer, and through this answer, actually, he made a point that we are, for example, biased or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
That's that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and for me, that would be the asking people, show of hands, yeah, or something like that, yeah, and getting them to respond, and then the trainer going from there and pointing out, well, this percent did this, why do they do that, and it goes up from ask into a discussion. Yeah. Point being is all these exercises you just talked about, they definitely involve the student engaging. If the students don't engage, these don't work. Yeah. And it's so far away from the old-fashioned lecture or straightforward presentation. It is involving the students. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, let's have a look at some of the, I mean, we've kind of done these, but there's some of your colleagues, journalist colleagues, doing a campaign planning exercise, not campaign planning, a lesson planning exercise. Yeah. From last year. Yeah. So that's practical exercise, straightforward. Yeah. Discussion guidance is essential. As Ognan said, you can't just let students just have a discussion about this. You have to be more directed. Yeah. You have to pose questions for them to discuss. Yeah. I think sometimes discussions are not monitored and encouraged enough by lecturers. They just go, okay, here we go, here's a discussion, go and discuss it, and then tell me what you've thought after 10 minutes. I think it's quite important that the teacher does go around and continue to encourage and monitor, especially if you're doing group work, discussions in group work. Yeah, otherwise discussions can go off on tangents and have a great discussion about a subject which is really interesting but not relevant to your learning objectives. So it is quite important. Guidance and then mentoring and encouragement goes on. And there we go, once again, a nice picture of people, journalists from the Western Balkans, in discussion. Yeah, whereas I was going around to each table and saying, right, okay, where are we with the discussion, and keeping it going. Same with online, which we'll come back to. The ask, yeah, I've mentioned psychologically we cannot avoid dealing with the question. Yeah, hence they are so important in the learning process, because they demand that the student address a question. Yeah, through quizzes, putting a poll in, hands up, how many think this, how many don't. Yeah, using technology, as Anya mentioned, something like Mentimeter. Yeah, I'll just bring it up on, quite an effective system, especially I think quite useful for young kids if they've got their mobile phones. Yeah, Mentimeter, where you ask them questions on the screen and they actually do the poll on their phone. Yeah, and I think you can go up to 10 questions in a presentation for free. So that's
It's
another way of
now. You only have three slides for free.
Okay.
It was 10, but now it's 3.
Okay. So you might, yeah.
Without subscribing to it.
Yeah, so they're trying to get some money, but it's a system. There's also there's Kahoot as well.
Dobro, rekao da ne sam ja ukočen.
Ne, se ukoči.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. There's Kahoot as well. Similar sort of system to Mentimeter. Yeah, using online tools. Once again, good for the kids. So there are many ways of just enforcing them and saying, here's a question, I need you to address it. Some people want to address it and get it stuck in. Even the ones who aren't engaged, they cannot really avoid trying to address a question. So I think the ask is crucial. If you're not asking your students questions throughout to address, and that's why I like, in terms of planning, I like questions to address. Yeah, so because I've already started thinking about what questions I'm going to pose to students as part of the learning process. Yeah. So questions, lecture, presentations. Yeah. What's the difference? What do we think the difference between a lecture and a presentation is? Is there a difference?
Using a PowerPoint presentation? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the difference being is that a presentation does have a higher degree of visual capability. Yeah. Whereas a lecture literally can be someone standing in front of a class and just talking. Yeah. Old-fashioned. You've got to be quite a good public speaker to engage your audience. If you're just having a pure lecture behind a lectern or whatever. Presentation, at least you have more visual capabilities. Yeah, even if a presentation can still be quite dry and boring, and we'll have a look at visual aids later. Yeah, but yeah, it can be very, very powerful. The presentation, and lecture, less so, unless you're a very good public speaker. Okay, manuals and handouts, I'll say no more. Yeah, you've seen, these are just examples of the ones that we produce for this. As I've also mentioned, manuals and handouts. Think about manuals and handouts. If you're doing a serious course, then do you necessarily just need to have them as paper printouts? Can you put them in a digital form? There's PDFs, obviously, but what about mobile apps? Is it worthwhile actually going, I've got a lot of material I'd love my students to take away to help them do what they're meant to do, objectives. Something on my mobile phone, on their mobile phones might actually help them to remember, to refer back to. So mobile apps, something to consider. Yeah. Case studies. Yeah, we've mentioned them. They are very good, and especially for the older cohort, especially for, well, not just the older cohort, for the younger cohort as well. showing them real cases where there has been misinformation, disinformation, etc. I think it's media literacy especially lends itself to case studies very well, because there are so many that can be brought up. Yeah, so many. Demonstration, well, a walkthrough of something, a system. If one of you said about TinEye, yeah, how do you use TinEye to do a reverse image search? Well, one of the best ways to do it is to actually show people on the screen here's TinEye. I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to put it in. This is what happens. These are the results. Show me. Don't tell me. Show me. Okay. And often followed by a practical. I've just shown you how to do this on TinEye. Now I want you to log in, take this picture, and examine. Yeah. And we'll do a little bit of demonstration later on. And there's a picture of people doing a demonstration. Mentoring, often post-training, relies a lot on delicate input and engagement. Yeah, mentoring is meant to be a two-way process. Yeah. I always tend to say mentoring should be voluntary to a degree. If you're told, right, you must mentor all these people, there might be problems, because some people might just go, I don't want to be mentored. I know everything I've learned, or I feel uncomfortable doing a one-to-one, which mentoring tends to be, or it can be in small groups. So I think it tends to be, you have to think about it being voluntary. And mentoring is obviously about guiding, not doing. Okay. So there's some of the main training mechanisms. Yeah, they're all variations of sorts. Yeah. But now I want you to actually try one. Yeah. We've got just under an hour to do. I want you to start thinking about this. And I'm going to give you a task, and I'm going to use breakout rooms to do it. Are there any questions at this point, or points, or things you want to raise? Okay. Well, in that case, I want you to do an exercise. And the exercise is quite simple. It's about chess. And I'm going to break you down into 2 syndicates very shortly. Okay. And that is what I want you to do. The task is you are to give a 15-minute lecture, or lesson, sorry, a lesson, not a lecture, a lesson in how to play chess for 20 students who have never come across the game before. Okay. Or maybe vaguely aware of it, but have never played it. Really, it's foreign to them. Okay. You decide how to basically plan your 15-minute lesson on teaching these 20 how to play chess. Yeah. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to discuss. And then I want each syndicate to brief back what they do. But specifically, what I want you to do, yeah, is when you brief back, to cover exactly what your learning objectives are. Yeah. Exactly what your KLPs or Q2As, key learning points or questions to address, are. What training mechanisms you'd employ, and what materials you would use. And let's say you can request whatever you want in terms of materials, okay, within reason. Yeah. I'm not, you can't say, well, actually, I'm going to take these 20 to, the world's finest institute for playing chess, and they're going to be sitting there amongst that. No, you're in a classroom with 20 people. What would you want to bring in with you such that you achieve your learning objectives? Okay. It's as simple as that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put those instructions in chat. So I'm just going to come out of there for a second. So you do have those questions in chat in case you forget what they are. Let me just bring up that document. And I will copy and paste it. Is everybody fairly happy with the instructions? So let me just put that in there. Has everybody used breakout rooms before?
Yes.
Okay, good. I can't seem to get that in there. Okay, fair enough. I'll avoid that. Everybody's happy with the instructions. What I'm going to do now is I am going to go to breakout rooms. Where are they? Breakout rooms. Okay. 2 breakout rooms. As you can see on the screen, I'm going to assign them automatically. Yeah, not manually. So in a few minutes, you will be in a breakout room. Yeah. In fact, Gordon, you probably will end up in one. I can bring you out. Okay. I'll give you 10 to 15 minutes. I will come in and listen in, but you don't need to talk in English. You can talk whatever language you want. You can talk in Chinese if you want. But in about 10, 15 minutes, I will want you to brief back on those things: objectives, key learning points, yeah, training mechanisms, and materials. Okay. So I'll see you very shortly in your breakout rooms. Let's just have a look, see what they look like. There we go. Your rooms are now opening. Okay, that's fine. So we've got 5 on the course. So Ivona and Biljana, you're still here, yeah? Outside the course, that's fine.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. You don't want to join in the exercise?
Unfortunately, I'm unable to do that.
Okay, that's absolutely
Really sorry,
fine.
but you have these great people over there. They know far more than I do.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so we've got 3 in one room and 2 in another. That's fine. Oh, yeah, see, this is what's happened. I've got 2 women in one group. There you go. Never mind. That's what happens when you do it automatically. That the Zoom isn't necessarily gender sensitive, but I think that's fine. Alexander said he was off to make some phone calls, so he'd be back. Who else was around? And we've lost.
Vasco left.
Yeah, he had to leave. Yeah, Vasco had to leave. Okay. That's fine. We go with who we've got. That's absolutely fine. Okay.
Jack, can we have the recording from the workshop? So
yes.
I can send it to the participants.
Yeah. I will. I will edit it and have it probably available later on today.
It's okay.
And what I'll do is I'll put it on the learning management system and then send you the link.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so you can just get that. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Right. Okay. Save. I'm going to go and have a little sneak into a room and see how things are going, even though they may be talking in local language, but that's absolutely fine. Let me just prepare that. Yep. Okay, that's fine. We've got enough time. So we've caught up on time because we've reduced the discussions a bit. But that's it. Once again, apologies for the internet. It sometimes happens.
No problem. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got around it. Right. I'm going to go and visit a room.
Okay.
Let's have a look. Join.
Это цель-то главное.
Да. Общата цел.
Да. Да се
Добро.
мотивира кралот You
okay in there? Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
Right. Okay. In that case, so you're happy with instructions? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this learning objectives is from the general one.
Well, learning objectives. Yeah. I mean, what do you want the students to do at the end of this? Yeah. Right now, they're pretty much unaware of what chess is. What do you want them to do? Realistically, what do you want them to do at the end of this? Do you want them to be grand? Do you want them to be grand masters of chess? Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, but what reasonably can you expect? So, yeah, think what do I want the students to be able to do in 15 minutes that they couldn't do at the start of those 15 minutes? And then you can sort of progress in thinking about your key learning objectives. In terms of audience, yeah, they're just general public. We're not going to go down into assessing exactly what the audience are. They're just general public. Yeah. But from the objectives, you can start thinking about your key learning points or key questions to address. What training mechanisms are you going to use, and what materials would you need? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
Okay. Jeff? Da. Si zamena?
Сигури се.
Да. Значи пион, топ, конј, ловец, крал и кралица.
Да, 6. Така да, окей. Да.
Сега дали амбициозна малце е лекцијата? Имаме 15 минути на 20 слушатели.
Не, ние имаме 15 минути ние да се ја договориме стратегијата. Ја така разбирам.
Дека лекцијата е толку долга.
Everybody okay there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Да го прашаме.
Any questions?
We are having a small dilemma, let's say. The class that we are supposed to have is on a group of 20 people, and we have only 15 minutes for the class. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a very short, 20 average people. We haven't been able to do an audience analysis. They're just average, average
so
man or woman.
We should assign time also for the stages, like learning objective.
Yeah. This is all about the planning. Yeah. So learning objectives. What do you want these 20 students to be able to do after your 15 minutes that they couldn't do at the start?
Okay. Аце, Кате, мислам дека 2 минути за презентација на почеток им е сосема окей.
За learning objective?
Ќе те прекинам, пошто веќе напишав нешто, окей?
I go mad. Okay, we're all coming back into the main room. Excellent. Okay, and hopefully we're all back. Right. So a simple exercise, I hope you'd agree. Yeah, just chess. How difficult can it be, really? But let's hear what you actually came up with a really basic lesson plan. So let's hear from room 1, which I've got to admit, I just say this, in terms of gender sensitivity, it's quite interesting. Obviously, Zoom isn't gender sensitive. So it did put both Tamara and Katerina in one room. So if I was doing this, I'd probably split you up just to be gender sensitive. But yeah, just be aware. There you go. Zoom isn't gender sensitive. It just does it completely randomly. But anyway, so it's room 1, which was Tamara, Katerina, and Alex, I think. Yeah.
Well, we decided Alexander do the talking. So
Okay, Alexander, over to you. How do you do this?
First of all, we are quite aware that we have very little time, and the group is actually not very small. But since we see this mostly as a planning exercise, I mean, we decided that our learning objectives would be to explain to the group what is the goal of the game, namely how do you win it, and what are the main rules of the game. This is an ambitious program again, but we are quite aware of it. Regarding the key learning points, we have one actually, and that is how to move the figures.
Okay. Yeah.
Regarding the training mechanisms, we would give around 2 minutes as in a direct lecture to the group, explaining the game and the goal of the game. We will give 5 minutes of presentation on how to move the figures. There are 6 different figures in chess actually, so each of them with their own movement. We will give them some sort of an exercise, an imaginary app for chess that would last about 5 minutes, and we would leave 3 minutes for questions and answers. Materials after the class, some sort of a booklet or an online book maybe for basics of chess.
What about materials during the class? What do you need?
Well,
chess.
When we
need chess.
When we set a presentation, I mean, maybe if it is an online class, of course, it will be a PowerPoint presentation that will include the board and the figures or the figurines, what are they called in English?
Yeah, the pieces.
Movement, yeah.
Okay.
We will have to explain that through pictures in a presentation.
Okay.
And then let the students try on their own in some sort of an imaginary app, for example.
So let the students try on their own doing what?
Moving the figures.
And how would you do that?
Well, if there is some sort of an app, as I said, it is an imaginary one.
Okay.
But
yeah. Well.
some
Yeah.
app that will, for example, if you move your pawn on a irregular way, the app will I don't know, will blink red or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah. Well, actually, I mean, there are, you know, I'm sure there are apps to play for playing chess. Are there not? I'm sure there are
I'm
apps.
sure there are. I don't
Download
think
on
they
your
are
phone. Yeah.
as we imagine them, but
Yeah. Okay.
for
Okay.
the sake
So
of an exercise, we suppose that there is such.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So 2 minutes for a sort of a direct. So just to summarize.
Yeah.
Yeah. You, in terms of your objectives, yeah, okay, you want them to understand what the main goal of the game is and understand what the main rules are. Okay. In terms of KLPs or questions to address, how to move the figures around. Okay. 2 minutes for an introductory lecture on what the game is and how to win it. 5-minute presentation on the moves. Yeah. 5 minutes on some sort of mechanism whereby they can try it either on an app. Well, you did mention an app or something, and then 3 minutes as like a Q&A wrap up. Yeah, does that make sense?
Well, actually, we had thoughts if it is better to have the Q&A before the exercise or after the exercise.
Okay.
But still, we decided to go with something like this. In reality, it would probably be those last 8 minutes will probably be some sort of an interactive.
Yeah.
But they will probably ask questions when the application or the program will blink red and they won't understand what are they doing wrong. So
okay. Super. All right. Okay. Let's go. Before we critique a little bit more, let's go to the other room. So that was Onion and Nasser.
Yeah, so we were a little bit old school, Nasser and I, because we tend to work through very old school techniques by dividing them into groups. But let's start with the learning objectives.
Mm-hmm.
So our learning objectives, we had two, is to achieve how to achieve a checkmate, and to learn the ways on how to beat the opponent. So those are the learning objectives. The key learning points are to teach them how the figures move around the board, which is the same with the other group.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also put it into the KLPs to teach them how to think strategically, and to teach them that the attack is the best defense here, but also how to counter an attack, or just to explain that technique that the counter attack is just a temporary strategy and you should prepare yourself for the attacks right afterwards.
Okay.
And training mechanisms,
mm-hmm.
learning by exercising chess games, to divide them into groups where they can think of the first 3 movements around the board, and then to discuss about the made movements, why did they do that, and to discuss about the moment of is that the best way to win, to beat the opponent, and why, and how the play will go on, and so forth, about their strategy. So what kind of strategy are they showing through those 3 first movements? And about the materials, just some guidelines on how to learn to play chess, or know-how of learning play chess. We didn't thought about materials much.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So let me summarize. So you've gone for your objectives are that the students will understand how to achieve checkmate. Yeah, understand what
it's
checkmate
more
is.
about to learn the ways on how to beat the opponent by strategically going towards the checkmate.
Okay. Your key learning points were how the figures move, what are the rules of maneuver, and then to what I'd say is to understand some basic strategic moves.
Yes.
both in attack and counterattack.
Yeah.
Okay. That your mechanism was largely.
But in the KLPs, the most important thing bulletin about for us is that to teach them that the attack is the best defense.
Attack's the best defense. Okay.
So by doing an attack all the time, it's also making a defense system and mechanism for themselves. That is how they're going to think strategically and to go towards the checkmate just by attacking all the time.
Okay. Okay. And your main mechanism is basically a practical learning by doing.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's all great. That's fine. Materials wise, I think you've got a big problem. How are they going to learn by doing when you've not specified in your plan what things you need for them to do that?
You mean the chessboards?
Yeah.
It was logical for us to have chessboards. Even
okay. How many chessboards?
It depends on the number of
you got 20
participants.
20 people.
20.
Yeah.
We have at least 10.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds, it's obvious, of course, but you got to plan for this. So all of a sudden, you need 10 chessboards.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you got 10 chessboards back behind you? Have you got 10 chessboards anywhere? No.
No.
It's part of your planning. It is part of your planning, and you think, okay, 10 too many. Could I break them down into maybe 4 groups of 5? Would that work? No, 5's odd number. Maybe 5 groups of 4. So could I get with 5? 5. Okay, maybe. Yeah.
We understood the materials part as the handouts after everything.
Okay, yeah.
That is why we didn't consider the chessboard.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. And that's my fault for not fully explaining it. No, materials are any materials you need for the entire learning process.
Okay. So in total, okay.
And the lesson here, which I've done this exercise many times, and people often forget. They go, oh yeah, we would learn by doing. Often forget about the basic materials. You need chess sets. Yeah. I quite liked room 1 where they said, actually, why don't we do it, on an app? If there are chess games on an app, why didn't we do that? Well, okay, we've got to make sure in that case that they do have the technology to do that. Do they all have mobile phones?
Mm-hmm.
How do you set them up to play each other? That takes a bit of setting up, doesn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think looking at both of them, I would say both ambitious. I'd say your learning objective is for the student to be able to play a basic game of chess.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, learning by exercising chess games.
Yeah, and learning by, but the ultimately is right now, as a student, I have no idea how to play that game with that funny board and those funny pieces. In 15 minutes time, I would be able to play a basic game. I'm probably going to be beaten every time, but I know how to play a basic game and can play a basic game. I think that within 15 minutes is a reasonable objective. Yeah. So I'm talking to both groups now. So I think you need to be just a little bit more realistic. I know this is a practice, this is exercise, but be realistic in what you can actually achieve.
I don't think that one could learn in 15 minutes how to play even a basic.
Well, I think within 15 minutes you could. All you've got to do is learn the basic moves, and the rules of what happens to pieces in certain conditions, and what actually makes you, what brings victory, what specific move or specific positioning brings victory. Yeah, and I think you could probably do that.
My son is 8.
Okay, a little bit young.
A couple of days ago, we tried to learn some chess. I mean, it's he understands something, but then the whole concept of the game to see in advance.
Yeah.
Even movement of some figures,
Yeah, you've got to remember them. That's
Yeah.
true.
So it's not so easy for somebody that doesn't know anything about chess.
No, exactly.
That's
on purpose, this is not meant to be easy.
opinion, yes. That's why we were not very ambitious, and we were.
No. Absolutely.
Agreed on that. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. You know, I think you can be. You got to be careful of him being over ambitious. But I think just a basic game, the basic rules, basic maneuver, I think is fine. Your KLPs, yeah, pretty much how to move figures. I think over time, if you really had to do this and you really had to have a proper lesson plan, you could probably develop more KLPs, you know, even down to how does a rook move? Yeah. How does the queen move? How does the king move? Pawns, starting move. Yeah, you could do a little bit more specifically in terms of key learning points or questions to address. I didn't give you enough time to do that. In terms of the training mechanisms, I think this does beg, and you both went to it, it does beg for a degree of presentation. You've got to tell them some stuff, and presentation is probably not a bad way of doing it, especially if you could do it visually, maybe on a PowerPoint, maybe, visual representation of what actually happens. If you didn't have that, you could actually have a chess set and 20 people sat around you and you show them physically. But you need to tell them stuff. But ultimately, in both you came to this is about learning by doing. This is about practical. Definitely about practical. Either through something online or through having 10 chess sets. There's no way around it here. You can't, you can't really achieve your objectives of learning the rules, how to win a basic game in this case without having a high degree of practical. And therefore, that indicates that the materials you need are pretty key to this. You cannot just walk into a room with a PowerPoint and achieve the objective of being able to play a basic game of chess, I don't think. So materials are very, very important, I think. But hopefully the process you just went through, really quick, 15 minutes for a really simple but actually quite difficult task. I do think this is possible. Within 15 minutes, you could take 20 people and teach them how to play chess. I think you could do that. But you do have to go through the planning process before you do it.
So you think that maybe we should narrow our broad picture of our expectations?
I think,
By your opinion, probably both groups have made a very broad picture of the expectations and the learning objectives.
I think you've been a little bit over ambitious. Thinking about getting them to think strategically that attack is the best form of defense. I think that's for lesson 2 or 3 of this. So I like your ambition. But I think it'd be quite difficult in the first 15 minutes, I think. But this is the process you go through. Is what I'm trying. Is it I've done the planning. I can see how it'll work. Is this actually doable? Or am I asking too much of the students and myself? And if it is doable, what do I need to put in place beforehand? If you were going to go down the route, and I like the idea of using online technology, well, that needs a degree of setting up beforehand. You'd probably need to have had the email addresses of all these 20 people to set them up an account on an online chess game or something. Because you don't want to walk into the classroom and spend your first 5 minutes of your 15 going, right, can you just fill in your email address and we'll just set you up. That'll take 15 minutes just to get them logged onto a chess game. So there's a degree of planning that goes into this. It's not about just pitching up in the room and saying, I've got a presentation. This won't work. You will not achieve what I think is the reasonable objective for students to be able to play a basic game of chess. So the reason I do this is to prove that actually the degree of planning is absolutely vital.
Maybe instead to make them to think strategically, maybe we can work on, let's say, three main starting moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote that down, Nasser. I think, yeah, maybe that you could go down to that route in part of learning how to move the pieces. You could say, actually, we're just going to show you three very solid opening moves.
And explaining why I'm doing it.
Yeah, you might get away with that. Yeah, but I think any more than that, boom, head explodes. Yeah. So there you go. That the reason I did that, the value of lesson planning. Okay. We are getting short of time now, so I'm going to whiz through some of this. Yeah, but it's planning. Yeah. In terms of in terms of presenting in the classroom, the most important visual aid is, of course, the trainer. Yeah. Remember that. Yeah. Your body language, and we're not going to cover body language. We haven't got time to do that. That's in another course. Yeah. But students will take a lot away from your facial and body language. Yeah. They really will. If they feel that you're welcoming them into the learning experience, that's great. If not, if you're freezing them out, emotions play a lot. We will respond to emotions. Yeah. I bring this up, Moravian theory, that in terms of communication, teaching is communication. Yeah. That we operate like an iceberg. Consciously, only a tiny bit is actually aware. We are taking up so much information and processing it below the waterline. Yeah. 7% of content. 38% of our communication is paralinguistic, how the content is expressed. Training mechanisms, that is. Yeah. 55% is non-verbal communication. We take a lot away from non-verbal communication. So you must be aware of that as a trainer. You can be the best trainer in the world, but if you're giving away really bad non-verbal communication signals, it will severely hamper the process. Yeah. Visual aids themselves. A picture tells 1,000 words. You know, I just brought that up. You know, a classic one used in media literacy and image understanding an image. Yeah, showing this one, an old CNN advert. You know, what does that picture mean? Going the wrong way. You know, what does that picture mean? What does that picture mean? Oh, look, they're both from the same picture. Oh, how we can manipulate imagery. That's just an example of using visual imagery. Yeah. Use visuals. Yeah. In terms of visual aids, obviously flip charts, very useful. Don't forget them. Whiteboards. I'd say with whiteboards, if you do use them and you want to capture the image, capture what's on them, get your phone out and take a snap of what's written on a whiteboard before you actually wipe it all off. Yeah. Both useful. And also props. Chess sets. Chess sets are props, aren't they? Yeah, if you don't have a chess set, it's quite difficult, or an electronic version of it, you can't really teach this. Yeah, so think about those. Yeah. Slides and PowerPoints. I noticed that lots of you came back in your surveys that you were quite comfortable with presenting. So I'm not really going to go too much into this. You know, simplicity in terms of slides, brevity. Hopefully all my slides have been very simple and to the point. Use sparingly. I'd say a rule of thumb is no more than one slide every 3 minutes. With builds, yeah, I've got actually something like 70 slides over 3 hours. Yeah, that's easily manageable. Yeah, if you're just tanking through slides, people lose interest very quickly. Do not use the script as I'm doing right now. You can do it a bit better online, especially if the script's right in front of you. Also, yeah, bullet point. Yeah, avoid death by bullet point. Yeah, as I'm starting to get a little bit like that now. Yeah, several bullet points coming up. Yeah, but use drama and images where you can. Yeah. like with the iceberg. Yeah, Moravian's iceberg. I brought up an image to represent exactly what I was talking about, Moravian's iceberg. Yeah. Kind of other things as well. Subtle transitions and animations. Yeah. If you notice all these, if I'm going to do this, yeah, I'm just going to bring in this next slide. It just slips out, fades in, fades out. Yeah, subtle. Don't shock people. Yeah. Especially when you get wingdings and things flying across the screen and whizzing around. Just no. Children maybe, but only to a point. Use builds, as I'm doing here. Yeah. Don't throw all your information on the screen at once, because what happens is people start trying to read it. Yeah. Think visually, big, bold, and bright. Videos. If you're going to use videos, belt and braces, insert into the slide, and also if you're still hooked to the internet, use a hyperlink as well, because I've seen that happen too many times, is that the link doesn't work. Always have a backup. Yeah. And use a remote clicker. Yeah. I don't need to in online here, but in the classroom, absolutely vital. Probably the most important thing you can have is a remote clicker. Yeah. Not coming back to the computer to press next, next, next. Yeah. And finally, plain fonts. Yeah. Fonts are actually quite important. Yeah, there are serious fonts and there are non-serious fonts. I think, yeah, this is Arial or Calibri, very straightforward. Yeah, just keep your fonts nice and simple. Black on white is always probably the best. Actually, people go, oh, well, it needs to be more colorful. Black on white is actually probably the best for retaining information. But going back to using builds, yeah, if I was starting to talk about that point, and then that point, and then that point, but I had all the points up on the screen at once, then the student is starting to try and read this stuff when you're still talking about this stuff up there. That's why you use builds. I've seen too many people do that. They just throw up everything on the screen and use it as a script. Build, use builds. Yeah, you put everything on there, I will try and read as a student, and I won't be listening to you, I'll be reading something else. Yeah, so I think builds are very important. Data, I think all you guys are probably good at this, yeah, because as modern day journalists, visualization is quite important. So, you know, infographics, they can be very, very useful as part of the presentation process. And that should be part of your bread and butter as journalists nowadays, data visualization, very, very important. So in terms of visual presentation in the classroom, there shouldn't be many questions, because most of you specified that you were quite comfortable with this. We do another course which is specifically about presentations and public speaking, but I don't think you guys and girls need that. See, I said you guys, but then I said you guys and girls. Gender sensitive. Are there any questions at this point before we roll towards the end? Okay. Let's talk about online training. Okay. Obviously, we've been doing online training here. Yeah. So again, Oasis, the same thing. Yeah. Same planning system to go through. Yeah. Except with your strategy, it can be expanded through time and extended engagement. Yeah. Because online, you may have a lesson, then you have assignments, discussion fora, and then the next lesson. Yeah. If you're in a school, obviously you can have homework and stuff. Yeah, and you can blend online with traditional as well. But online, you have that ability to expand. Yeah, implementation, the same thing. Okay, and scoring. Again, online, you can have a better degree of metrics, because you're using electronic surveys, recording, so you can go back and see, well, how did so and so approach this problem? I can't remember. It's on video. Yeah. So online can be much more effective for scoring as well. There's a lesson plan. That lesson plan I've already shown you once for cyber and safety, the cyber and safety lesson plan. Yeah, you've seen this already. That's the old-fashioned standard class, half an hour. Yeah, very basic. Probably could be a lot more built up if I was doing it again. Yeah. This is the lesson plan for this lesson, actually. And in fact, I'll show you the real thing. Yeah, that's the PowerPoint. Let's go to the real thing and show you the real thing, which is on my LMS for on the instructor view. Yeah, there it is. So I've got, for this lesson, yeah, this 3-hour session, there are, that's my lesson plan. Now, once again, you notice that objectives, audience, strategy, implementation, mechanisms, materials, and time. So the same principles apply, OASIS, across the board. Yeah. Objectives, they're the objectives. The 6 objectives. Hey, guess what? Right at the start of this, I did have 6 objectives. Remember? 3 and then 3. Yeah, we had a break. Well, we didn't actually have the break, did we? Because we had to adapt. Yeah. But if you look here, there are all the KLPs or Q2As. Yeah. That's about the right. I expect you maybe could have a few more. Yeah. These are sort of questions I think I need to address for you to learn about training in terms of training. In terms of implementation, yeah, presentation. I put them in bold and italics to say this is the mechanism I'm using. Okay, presentation, ask, discuss the pre-training survey. Yeah, pre-lesson. So in green, I have stuff which is done outside the lesson and is part of a wider session. Yeah. So I wanted you to read the ToT manual part 1, which was submitted, was on the learning management system. So there's a degree of stuff I need you to have done before you actually start this lesson, really to have the best possibility of achieving the objectives. Presentation, ask, discussion. Where are we now? Let's have a look. Where are we now? We are looking, we're at this part now. Presentation, yeah. Demonstration of mechanisms. So we're doing a use a variety of training mechanism online. That's the objective. Yeah. These are the sort of questions that I should be addressing in this session. Demonstration. Jem, are you going to do a demonstration? Yeah, we are. Okay. This is the example. I'm going to make sure that you have that available on the LMS. Yeah. So I'll give you access to that so you can see the difference between the online, which is on the LMS, the traditional and the online. Okay. So the lesson plan says, Jem, you're meant to be doing a demonstration now. Oh, really? Am I? Well, let's have a look. Online sessions. Let's move on to a demonstration in a minute. This is an example of a multi-session course. Yeah. Where you will have seen on the LMS half of that diagram. But on an online course, you may have the pre-session work, reading ToT manual part 2, the VTC lesson, maybe some inter-lesson work, assignments and fora. We're not doing in this case because you're only getting one session, just doing one quick session. But this is how a multi-course might do. And Onyen, you might recognize someone like this from, courses you've done before as well, the multiple on and on. Yeah. So if you come back and do any more courses with us, more extended, this is the sort of thing you'll be doing. But let's have a look at mechanisms online and do maybe some demonstrations in a minute. Yeah, presentation. We're doing presentation now. Yeah, let's go back. Presentation. I've asked you questions. I'm going to demonstrate something in a minute. I've given you an exercise, the chess exercise. So online, we're doing this just as much as you could do it in a classroom. Yeah. Assignments. Online, you can do assignments. You had an assignment. Yeah. Assignment 1A. You can do many more if you've multiple. I won't click into that now because you've seen it anyway. Discussion fora. Yeah. For groups. They can be held online within a learning management system, or you could even do it over Viber or WhatsApp if you wanted to, or a Facebook group if you wanted to. You don't need necessarily a learning management system. It's a lot neater and tidier if you do. Yeah. So that's one of the advantages of online is you have easy access to a discussion fora. Whereas with a lesson, people come, lesson, traditional face-to-face, you do it, then they disappear and you've lost track of them, quite possibly. Okay. And reading as well, by putting material on the system for people to read beforehand and maybe after as material. Okay. Other things you can do, yeah, wikis, quizzes, peer review. That's a very good thing to do, actually, peer review. Yeah, that's the delegatory method. Yeah, getting people to mark and judge students to mark and judge each other's material. Yeah, especially in assignments. Put assignments in and you say, right, okay, I'm gonna give each student someone else's assignment to look at and read. Very useful. And surveys as well. Yeah. We're not going to do the discussion now because I'm aware we're almost out of time. But discussion would be a learning activity. Using Zoom or other VTC, key features of Zoom, breakout rooms, we've already played with those. Polling. Okay, so polling, let's have a look. What does that mean, Jem? What do you mean by polling? Well, let's have a little poll. Okay, let's do a demonstration. Okay, I'm going to launch a poll and you should see on your screen 2 questions. I want you to answer them. Simple questions. Off you go. Have you got the poll on your screens? Here we go. And here they come. Super duper. And I'm going to end the poll because I'm aware of time. There you go. Hopefully you've all... Well, I can see some. Yeah. Okay, there you go. End poll. Yeah. Share results. I can share results. Yeah. I'll bring that onto the screen now. There we go. Yeah, there are the results. Yeah, you've all used Zoom before, so cool. We don't need to really go on anymore. But yeah, if you hadn't, there's the polling feature. As simple as that. Okay, straightforward. What else we got on Zoom, which you might... Annotation tools. Yeah, have you all used annotation tools before? Okay, this is an example. There's a picture there. Okay. I want you to go to, I think it'd be the bottom of your screen and you'll find annotation tools. I want you, yeah, to circle somewhere on that picture which indicates this has been manipulated, this picture. Somewhere on that picture, there's an indication that this has been manipulated. I want you to use an annotation tool, and I'll show you just the example of annotation tools. Where are they? Annotate. Yeah, where I can, where is draw. I can draw a circle and go, oh, there, or there, or there.
How do you do that?
Sorry?
How do you do the annotation?
Right. Okay. On the bottom of, if you go to your screen at the bottom, you should be able to, there should be an annotation should come up. And if it doesn't, it's not because I haven't set it up properly.
No, I don't.
Doesn't come up. Okay. That's my fault as a teacher. Yeah. In Zoom, what you need to, for polling and for annotation tools.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will just explain this in Macedonian.
Yeah, please.
Горе имате дечки, сега Гордан кажа. Нели имате you are viewing Albany Associates screen, така? И имате горе view options. Во view имате опција за annotate.
There we go. So someone has spotted. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Oh, Gordon's just right, Jem. Yeah. Someone has circled the right bit, which indicates where this picture has been manipulated. Yeah. And I am going to do it as well. I'm going to draw a square around that area. There it is. There's no shadow from that other pint of beer. So there is something going on with this picture. But there you go. That's the example of using annotation tools. Okay. Quite useful for getting, once again, people to engage in the process. Okay. And finally, of course, with this, you can have simultaneous translation via a human. Today, it is Gordon who is doing it. Yeah. That does require a degree of setting up, but if you are training
how to stop this annotation tool?
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
X-от појди, Тамара, нели ти се појави една нова линија со опции, само на X-от исклучи го. Ти се појави?
Yeah.
Нели кога имаш view
да,
option,
да.
да, само X-от и готово.
Thank you very much. This is the teacher involving his students in the training, you see, facilitating knowledge. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's press on, because I know you want to go. There you go, demonstration. I've just demonstrated some material for you. There's a demonstration of a demonstration, okay? Scoring evaluation, we will finish very shortly. I'd love to clear my screen now. That's a very good question. I'll clear the screen. Clear the screen. Oh, I can't find it. Oh, there we go. It's being cleared now. Gordon, thank you very much. I think you're doing that, aren't you? Yeah, if you can clear everything else, that'd be great. Survey. Post-training, evaluating. Yeah. Oh, now Gordon's going mad and writing some more stuff. Hang on. Let me just do this quickly. Annotation, eraser. There you go. Everything's gone. Right. Okay. Scoring and evaluation. 4 levels we tend to use, called something called the Kirkpatrick's model. Yeah. Reaction, learning, behavior, and outcome. Yeah. This is more specific for adults, certainly. Yeah. Reaction and learning. Yeah. How do your students reacted immediately, and what have they learned? Yeah. Doing it as soon as possible after the training. Yeah. Asking the survey questions again. Establish a rating. Yeah. Something like that. Also open-ended questions. Yeah. The good thing is if you've established a baseline by asking questions in your pre-training survey, then you can also measure again by asking the same survey questions again at the end, and hopefully, you know, at the start, did you understand how to play chess? Marks 1 to 10, 2. 15 minutes later, do you understand how to play chess? Oh, 7. Ah, well, we have achieved something. Yeah, that's the simple chess analogy. You will notice on your pre-training surveys, it wasn't as well developed. That's because I didn't have a translated version. So what you've had as pre-training surveys don't go into that much detail around the objectives. The real thing it would be. I apologize for that because I didn't have the translated versions available. But that's the sort of thing you should be asking. Baseline, end line, and also the open-ended questions like this. Yeah, which are in your post-training survey, which we'll go into in a minute. Behavior, well, I've learned something I've learned how to play chess. I've learned the basics of chess. Behavior, 2 or 3 months, yeah, am I now playing chess? Yeah, can I play chess more competently now? Yeah, based upon that 15 minutes I had. Yeah, so has it changed my behavior in terms of the game? Yeah. Normally 2 to 3 months later, after by electronic survey, probably, yeah. So the objective was to get you to be able to play a basic game of chess. You learned how to play a basic game of chess. 2 or 3 months later, can you now actually play basic games of chess? Maybe more advanced games of chess. Yeah. How comfortable are you in playing chess? Yeah. Simple as that. So it's looking at behavior and then outcome. Yeah. Normally way in the distance, maybe 6 months after the initial engagement. Yeah. Especially if it's in adult courses. Yeah. Normally an independent observer, third party. Yeah. Yeah. I'm now very happy that Katerina, yeah, can play chess to a very high level. And that's what I wanted to, as her manager, that's what I wanted her to be able to do. So the outcome is brilliant. Yeah. As opposed to, you know, Alexander. Yeah. He did that course, 15 minutes. He said he learned how to play chess. Yeah. He can just about play chess, but actually 6 months down the line, he's still pretty rubbish and doesn't understand, you know, opening gambits and stuff. Really. I'm sure, Alexander, that's no reflection on you. I'm sure you're very good at playing chess, but that's an example. Yeah, that's an example of outcome. Yeah, didn't really do it. Yeah, so that's the level you need to be looking at based upon general expectations and goals of the organization. It is more difficult the further out you go. Reaction and learning, very easy to measure, to get data on. when you go to behavior, 2 or 3 months later, more difficult, and then sometimes outcome is almost impossible. Unless you're within an organization, working for an organization who's, you know, really engaged in the whole training exercise. SurveyMonkey is a system that we often use. There are others available, Google Forms and others which you may use as electronic survey. I won't go into that because you'll be looking at it later. So, a quick session through surveys. Yeah. Obviously, in terms of practical demonstration, I've already asked you to do a pre-training survey. I'm going to be asking you to do a post-training survey. Yeah, demonstration of the real thing. But that kind of finishes this very quick run through on training of trainers. Yeah. Are there any questions at this point before we finish? No? Okay, well, good practice. Last thing is go back. These were the objectives we had 3 hours ago. We've had a few technical issues, but hopefully we can all, or you can all look at those and hopefully tick those off and say, yeah, I'm now better able to carry out pre-training assessment, design training modules, incorporate gender sensitivity into training, use a variety of training mechanisms online and off, and evaluate training better. So hopefully we can say, yes, we have achieved those objectives. And hopefully you're all nodding, going, yeah, that's about right. Because if not, then we've missed something. Yeah, hopefully you can. Just in terms of continuing development after this, I will give you access on the LMS to another course, which you can do in your own time. It's an LMS training for instructors. Yeah. The system that we've been using, the LMS, the Learning Management System, is Moodle based. Moodle is very, very popular across the world. Yeah. This course. Sorry?
What is Moodle?
Moodle is an off-the-shelf, open source learning management system. Yeah. You could build one yourself if you wanted to. What we've done, we went out to a software developer and said, can you just build a Moodle platform for us? But very, very easy to use. As I say, it's open source, constantly developed, and very easy to manage. Yeah. So if you were going to do online training more than just doing a Zoom lecture, and you wanted to do assignments, discussion fora, stuff, you can do it, you know, have a lesson online and then do Facebook discussion groups, Viber discussion groups, email assignments out, you can do all that. Learning Management System brings it all together, and Moodle is probably the most popular across the world. Okay, this course will take you through how to maybe do some of those things, and if you look at it, you might go, actually, I want my organization to invest in, you know, building a Moodle platform, or try and even do it yourself. Yeah. So you will have access to that. So next time you go into the LMS, you will have not only this existing course, the ToT, the LMS will also have the instructing course as well. Give me a few hours to set that up, but next time you go in, it will be there if you want to do it. It is in English, but I think that'll be fine. And of course, the post-training survey, please. Yeah, can you please do that as well? As a teacher, I implore you to do the post-training survey. So with that, I apologize, we're 10 minutes over, and I apologize for the technical issues that we had, but that brings this quick run through in training of trainers to an end. Are there any questions or points or issues you want to raise? Otherwise, I will let you go. Are there any? Are we all on camera? We're going to go on camera for the final splurge. Come on, Katerina, Ivona, Biljana, come on, everyone on camera to say goodbye. Come on. And there we go. The gang of 8. Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, if there are no questions or points, you can contact me through email or on the Learning Management System if you do have any follow-ups. Yeah, there is more material when you go to the LMS. There's more material there, gender sensitivity stuff, also LMS for instructors. In that case, thank you very much for your time. Once again, apologies for the technical issues, but we adapted, we planned, we adapted, we overcame. So from Cambridge, thank you very much. Good luck. And maybe I'll see you out in the Western Balkans sometime. Hopefully I will. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jem. Bye.
Bye.